Hey everybody, Chris here from Mincemeat Made, and today I am just going to be painting Squirtle. I've gotten his airbrush done, and I've already kind of started a base coat of the shell. And what I'm going to be doing is just keep working on this shell edge, and then I'll be getting into the detail work of the shell as well. And that's pretty much it. So I'm going to be using cotton white full card acrylic paint. It's just cheap hobby paint. The key is, for me at least, when I'm using this kind of stuff, I'm watering it down, and I got a little eyedropper to put a few drops of water in it. And if at all you have any questions, feel free to ask them. And the white I'm using is cottage white, just in case. It's just a nice little off-white. All right, so got my brush. And I'm going to be putting like 3 drops in here. And that's the key I've always found, is if you don't water down your paints, at least when you're using these acrylic paints, that's how you can see every single brush stroke. So just stirring it around here. There we go. Okay. There we go. And I'm kind of blind, so I use these. They're fantastic because you can really see in there, and there's a little light on the head to be able to see even better. So before I start painting him, just wanted to let you know I actually got this model from Mars Pro 3D, or Mar Pros 3D, and I've got a link to his stuff in the description where you can see his profile, and you can see where you can actually get this model on Cults 3D. I printed him in resin on my Anycubic Photon, and it just turned out so fantastic. He's super cute. And I'm kind of making my way through the starter Pokemon. I've actually already painted. I've already painted Bulbasaur here, so you can kind of see him. He turned out absolutely fantastic. There we go. But I got him done, and then just a few days ago, I finished Charmander. And you can see he turned out really fun too. But these have just been so much fun to paint, and I can't wait to finish Squirtle. But yeah, so Mar Pros 3D is the guy that has modeled all of these. He's a fantastic modeler, and he's made a lot of other really fun stuff. All right, so just gonna get at it. And if you have any questions along the way, please feel free to ask. I'm just gonna be kind of painting this guy. And the problem with painting with white on any color besides white is you typically have to do multiple coats. So I'm trying to do kind of a thick coat around the edge so I don't have to keep coming back to it. One thing is, when you're watering down your paints, it's pretty important to not water them down too much, because then they just kind of turn into water and it loses its viscosity, so it just doesn't hold well. And you can find when you get near an edge, it just kind of like seeps in and goes everywhere all over your model. And that is a hard lesson learned sometimes when you're doing a lot of detail work. Oh, hey, how we doing? Oh, thanks a lot for this. Greetings from Sweden. Oh, wow. Awesome. Well, this is from Ohio in the United States. Oh. Okay. Love your work. I love your work. Is amazing, and I learn a lot. Oh, wow. Thanks a lot. That means a lot. That actually made my day. I'm glad. That's honestly the goal of why I do Instagram and YouTube, is just because I want to help people out. I like to share the wealth and share the knowledge. And if you ever have any problems with anything, feel free to you can message me on Instagram at It's Mead Made, and or you can leave a comment in any of the videos. And if I can't answer it quickly, I could even make a video on it. A lot of my videos that are not just painting, like any of the 3D printing stuff, is really user driven. People ask me questions and I make a video on it. I'm definitely always here to help. So right now I'm just kind of going around the edge. the outside edge and getting this guy, because everything else so far has been airbrushed. So I actually did a live last night where I masked his stomach off, and then I airbrushed him with this golden glow. And after I did that, I went back in and did the shadowing with this yellow orchid, and it turned out pretty good, I think. And then the back I airbrushed as well. So this is the first time I've really applied a brush to this guy to get him to this point, if you ignore the white. So it's really fun to be able to get some of that shading and stuff, that general gradations. Like his shell is a little darker on the edges. And then obviously for his belly and stuff, you can see how it's darker underneath and underneath the head. Oh, and Manuel, sorry, I do not speak Spanish, unfortunately. I know people message me on Instagram and stuff in Spanish, and I usually have to use something to transcribe it back and forth. Can't do that live, unfortunately. I wish I knew Spanish. So I wouldn't be shocked if the white part will actually take two coats at least after this coat originally. So it'll probably be a total of 3 coats. He's got some very challenging nooks and crannies to try to get into, because around the arms, like masking these arms were just, let's just say, difficult to say the least. And this area is not the easiest. And if anybody has any questions or anything about painting or even 3D printing, since that's really all my channel's about, feel free to ask. I'm more than happy to talk about it. Hi from Belgium. Awesome. Hello from Ohio in the United States. And we're almost all the way around. What do you prefer, PLA or resin, and why? I get asked that quite a bit, and quite honestly, I kind of prefer both. I know it's probably a really bad answer, but I found I got into resin printing because there were some things that FDM just couldn't do, and there's other things that where PLA and stuff like that are just fantastic for. But I would have to say, if it comes to a painting standpoint, right now I like FDM more just because I can print a whole lot bigger. Like here, this just finished on my printer last night. I can't even fit him in the frame completely. Dark side. I like how big it is. I love painting big busts. But the problem also with PLA is I got a clog, and you can see it along here, and I'm going to have to, I was able to fix it, and then it kept printing just fine. But now I've got this strip across my model that I have got to repair. And I know I'm going to be able to, and I'll probably make a YouTube video on how to repair FDM or PLA prints, because I'm going to be using putty and different methods. But I love printing huge things and printing busts and painting them. But painting little guys like this is always so much fun because the quality of like your paint is just absolutely amazing. So it's a lot of fun, and it really depends on what your what the goal is. If you like painting huge things and you don't have, you know, $10,000 to buy a huge resin printer, FDM's the way to go, because a lot of people are always shocked when I'm talking to them about my 3D printing and how my printers are only like $200. But it's always really hard. I love painting. The quality of a resin print is always phenomenal to me. But because that's why I got into resin printing, because I just love it. They're just so clean, and like you couldn't get something like this on an FDM without hours of sanding and puttying. So for little figures and things like that, I really like. I automatically go to resin printing, but for bigger stuff, I go to FDM. So I hope that's a good explanation, and it's probably not. It's always funny when people are trying to decide, like, should they do one or the other, and then they ask me, and it's like, well, what do you want to do? Like, if you're into, like, you know, D&D and you want to paint or print a bunch of minis, then resin is the way to go for sure, because you can get some really cool stuff. But recently I started a new Patreon with Sanix, if anybody's familiar with him. And he has a lot of these superhero statues, little mini dioramas, and I'm planning on printing those or painting those. Here, I could actually show you. So this right here is the Captain America. I actually did a YouTube live a little while ago where I processed him and put him together, and I haven't touched him since. And let me see if I can. Since he's all black, he's kind of hard to see. But you can see the level of detail on him. But this, so his shield goes in here. here. The shield goes in the base, and then he holds this like that. But yeah, like this is what I'm wanting to start painting, like things like this, while still painting my regular busts and things, because they're just fun. All right. This is the really tedious part. And one thing when you're like painting like this, you always want to have a good firm hold of the model. I never paint up in the air. Like I'm always up against the table. So I've actually got my hand planted on the table, and I'm always using, like I never go like this, like in paint like this. I always ground myself on the model itself. That way I have more control of back and forth. Because if you're like this, you don't know where your back and forth is. So it's just one of those things that I kind of just learned that way. I'm sure a lot of people do it, but just kind of explaining how you can get really good control. And if anybody has any questions, feel free to ask. Okay, almost there. All right, so now that I got the edge, I'm not going to just keep going back over around the edges over and over and over. I'm actually going to, let me see if this is a good brush. Yeah, I'll use this brush, which is just a 1. I'll go through, and now I'm just going to hit all of the main areas and kind of stay away from the edges. I'll get a little close to them, a little closer now that I know, but I'm going to try to hit my second coat of the white. And I did water these down. If you might have missed that, I never use my paints. This is the paint I'm using, which is just a cottage white. It's just a nice off-white, because I didn't really want that stark white, because the stark white I'm going to be using in his eyes. So the white of his eyes are going to be stark white, and I didn't want to use the same color. You might not be able to tell in the end, but I'll know. And I thin my paints for the specific reason of when it dries, you don't see brush strokes. And that's always super important to me. Because nothing's worse when you have an amazing print, but you don't see any layer lines, but you see every brush stroke. But you can see them while you're painting, but they just kind of go away when it dries. Oh, Mar Pros. I've got your model here, working on him. Thanks for stopping by. So Mar Pros is the person that modeled this. I know I said that in the beginning, but since he literally just joined, I've got a link to his file in the description where you can get it on Cults 3D. And these are just honestly some of the most fun paints I've done in a while. They just kind of make you smile. Thanks a lot. But hopefully today I can have him nearly done. He might be done today, depending on how much time. I'm actually off from work this week, and I've been taking all the time I can to actually paint. It's a little bit of a vacation for me. Who needs a beach when you've got a paint desk? And getting to the dreaded tail area. This area right here is really hard to get into, but You just kind of got to take it slow. And the way I've painted this guy is I wanted some really nice gradations on the shell. So like when I did Charmander here, I did gradations on his skin, and I really wanted that, like even the rosy cheeks and stuff like that. But for this guy, I didn't want to. Even Bulbasaur, I did gradations like underneath the bulb, and like you can kind of see on the top of the head right there. And then I did a bunch of gradations on the bulb itself. But for him, I didn't do any shadowing on the skin itself. What I did was I just only did shadowing on the shells, the shell part. So when I'm painting these edges, I'm not too concerned if I hit the skin, because I can just go back in and hit it with the paint that I was using, and you'll never even tell. But the thing is I actually painted this with a light blue first, and then I went over with this gloss really lightly with my airbrush to give him a shine, because I wanted him a little shiny since he's, a water Pokemon. So if you can see the difference between the shine of here, this is matte, and then this is shiny. So I really wanted him to have that like little extra detail to make him pop out. But if I accidentally hit anything, I can definitely just go back and touch it up. But I am being very, very cautious around the shell portion since it's airbrushed. I can, with a brush, fix the gradations because I'm using oak brown around the edges. It's a army painter paint. And I'd have to get my wet palette out and really start to gradate it. But for this, I haven't been using any wet palettes, just straight colors. Because any of the shading or anything like that, I'm trying to do on my airbrush. Because I just upgraded my airbrush to a Zotar Badger airbrush, which I absolutely love. So I've just been working on getting better at airbrushing, because it's one of those things that you just got to have hours behind it. And once I get this second coat, I'm going to go ahead and start on the shell, the cracks of the shell. I'm actually going to make it a little darker on the lines to give that definition. And it definitely looks like I'm going to have to do at least 3 coats of white on this edge, which isn't a big deal. I don't mind the extra work. And I'm almost back around where I started. And there we go. So there's 2 coats of the white around the shell. So it's looking pretty good. And now I'm going to go ahead and move forward, let that dry a bit. I'm going to work on his stomach. And so for his stomach, these are the two colors that I used. I used a golden yellow on the stomach, and then for the shading around the stomach, I used this golden orchid. And what I'm going to do is take this classic caramel, which is just a shade darker, and I'm going to paint these edges, kind of the separation, the lines. So I'm not going to need much paint. And it never comes out in a tiny little drop when you need it to. And so when I water down my paints, I want them to not flow super easy, but just a little bit. So I'll put 2 or 3 drops in there. And then I'm going to go ahead and mix this up until it's nice and thin. And that looks good. So typically my best indicator is when I wipe off my brush and it flows back down into the little well. That means I've got it where I need it. But typically for, a drop of paint, I'll put 2 or 3 drops of water. And switch brushes. So this is a 10/0. It's a very, very fine point. So I am not a brush licker. There are some people that always put the brush in their mouth to get their tip. I'll always just get it wet, and then I drag and I'm twisting like this while I'm dragging, and then that gives you a very sharp tip on there, you can see. And the key to this is not overloading your brush. You want to get just a tiny bit of paint on it, and then just kind of drag it in the crack. Because the key to this right now is it's not going to stand out like crazy. I just want to be able to see some of those lines pop out a little more. So if you can see, it's not super dark. It's pretty close to the color. And if you've painted anything before, you know that sometimes the color choices is half the battle. This guy. Okay. So I'm always doing a fluid motion. I'm never kind of jabbing it or stippling it or anything like that. I just always am dragging. And you want to make sure that you have a good consistency on your paints. Like that is honestly one of the biggest keys. Okay. And so this is lighter on the shell. I'm probably going to go a whole lot darker for these lines. I might even just use a black. Okay. Looking pretty good. And if anybody has any questions or anything, feel free to ask. Okay. So there we go. I think it gave a lot of good definition to it. And like I said, like I did not go super dark. So from this color to this color, well, so this is more of a golden, and then golden brown. This is more of a brown, the caramel. All right, so now we're ready for the back. And I think a black might work out better than anything, because I really want to see that definition. Since I use so much black, I have a big bottle of it and got it at Walmart for, I think it's like $3, $3 or $4 maybe. Since the little bottles, like these are 99 cents US, very cheap acrylic paints. All right, so we're gonna need just a tiny bit. And there we go. A little black always goes a long way. Now I'm gonna still do the same thing. Add probably 3 drops. Okay. And one thing to note when I'm actually painting this guy, I have a Q-tip on the standby, because if I would have accidentally gotten this off the edge, I could have dabbed this and got it a little wet and then just did a wipe to be able to save it. And sometimes you can just like wet your brush and also save it and get things off. So if I get like a white spot on here, I can easily just get a wet brush, and you're essentially watering down and wiping away the paint that you just put on there. But yeah, I just realized that I've got it sitting here just in case, and you can't see it. And you can kind of see here to show you, you see it flowing in. That means I got it pretty good. This one's a little more liquid than I would usually make any of my other paints, just because I know how black works. I want it thin so I can get it in these cracks really easily, and it'll flow in the cracks. So this whole time I'm going to be dragging, put it in and drag it away. And yeah, it's flowing really well. And just be careful not to get too much on your brush. And like I just said, I got a little too much on my brush right when I told you be careful. So you can see how I'm just kind of wiping it, and it took care of that edge. So Q-tips, and now I probably won't use that end again now that it has a little bit on it, because you can get in danger of wiping more paint on it, and Q-tips are cheap, so okay. And it's always finding the right angle to drag your brush. Okay. So the one thing that this is deep, these cracks, and I'm not only painting the bottom of it, like in the channel, I'm also painting the sides. So like I got to make sure that I can wipe the sides of the actual crack as well to get that really nice dark definition, because if not, you're going to see waviness on the line, but it's not actually waviness. It's just you didn't fully fill the crack. And this outside, like the circle, or I guess pentagon that is on the top of the shell here is wider than this. So like these little branches are a lot easier because my brush width is the same width, but I have to kind of get the edges on the shell right here. And I think that's the key when you're painting, is like looking at those little tiny things. It's the little details that really just make it. And stuff that you'll only notice, but it honestly, I feel like it makes you appreciate your paint job a little more. Okay. So it's looking pretty good. Hi there. How we doing? Thanks for stopping by. And like I've said, if anybody has any questions, please feel free to ask. 3D printing related, or even painting. Thank you. I think he looks great too. He's really turning out well. Yeah, this model is from Mar Pros 3D. I put a link to his profile and his Instagram profile in the description, and where you can get this model. He does amazing work. I can't talk him up enough. Whew. So that was difficult to try to get underneath that tail. There's this tiny little spot. So basically right here, the top portion is at the bottom. And I don't know how I'm going to get my brush in there. I might have to switch brushes. Let's see if I could. Let's see. Make sure to clean that brush first. Okay. So this is probably right here the most difficult part of this entire model. So first, when I'm doing something, I always check to see if my brush will even get there with no paint on it whatsoever. I don't recommend you giving it your first go without testing it. So I might be able to get it. It's worth a shot. Yeah, it is a bit tricky. So the way the model is, there's some people that will, well, not some people, modelers, when they're doing it with 3D prints, they will decide that, you know, the head is going to be done separately, the arms, the tail. So wait, here, I've got the perfect example. And look at that, Squirtle. So this was all separate, and I honestly just never glued it together. Like his arms come off, everything comes off. And I'm not a fan of it when the models are taken apart like crazy. It's way easier to paint. Way easier to paint, because this is actually one of my first paints. You can see I've kind of upgraded. But it's way easier to paint, but the quality, I feel like every single time you have different seams and stuff like that, like it doesn't feel like it's an actual whole piece. So I like the fact that Marpros actually made this all one model, because I just think it makes it a cleaner model, but it does make it a lot more challenging. Put a bit of tape on the tail. That is a brilliant idea that I did not think of, because I'm so focused on painting. Thank you. See, look, the modeler is even, the modeler of this is even helping me out here. So I'm going to go ahead and put some tape on the tail. That's a brilliant idea. Thank you. I don't know why I didn't think of that, because I do this quite often. That's why I have my tape so close to all my painting. All right, so this is like a little wooden skewer that I use for masking. And there we go. All right. So the other thing is, I might, to prevent over, what I'm going to do is I'm also going to put a piece of tape on this edge. All right. So I've got a piece of tape in there right on the edge of this seam. Like it's right on the edge, so when I hit it, I'm not going to be too worried about overage, I guess. So here we go. Fingers crossed, everybody. I am not getting it. When in doubt, get another brush. We'll try this. So I bought this brush and the bristles, it came bent. And I leave it bent for this exact reason. So I'm not going to wet my brush or anything like that. I'm just going to use it and take advantage of the bend. And that is getting it. Okay, so I got it, but it did get on the shell. And that's why I keep a Q-tip to wipe off any excess. Okay, I got it. Woo! My adrenaline might have went up just a little bit on that. So now just take the tape off. And good to keep moving. There we go. Oh man. Okay. Just making sure here. And there's a tiny bit of paint right there. And all I'm doing is getting a clean brush, getting it a little wet, just a little bit wet, and kind of scrubbing the area with my brush back and forth. And that takes care of it. So that is pretty much it right there. So his black part of his shell is done. His belly is done. And all I have left is to get the white. And I think I'll go ahead and do another pass on that. So that way the shell and body can be almost 100% done. So the one thing I'm going to be doing is, let me see if I can get the example here. So can you see it? Yes, you can. So this is actually Pro's Instagram. And he has a gradation on the eye that I absolutely love. And I plan on doing that. So I am actually going to mask off this eye, or his eyes, and airbrush his eyes. So I did the same thing with the Charmander. So you can see that it's really dark blue up top and it's a lighter blue on the bottom. I just think it gives it so much more character. So it's going to be really dark at the top, and then that gradient down to that like reddish looking color. It's like a reddish purple, but that's the plan. So I'll take care of this because I'm not going to take care of anything here because I'm going to be masking it, and I can't leave this table because the airbrush booth is incredibly loud. So I'm just going to jump back to the white here and see if my white congealed in any way. I don't think it did. It did a little bit. And that's the difference of having a wet palette. And if you see, I know it's hard to see because it's white, but see how it's globbed right there and it's not running back down? That means it actually started drying. And the beautiful part, I can just add another drop of water in there, maybe two. And now it's back to a liquid. Yep. But when it comes to it, this white is probably the hardest part because I got to keep painting it over and over. And the more passes you have to do, the greater risk you have for messing up. But the way it's looking, that might be the last coat. It's looking really good in comparison. I don't know if you can actually tell on this camera, but you can still see through just a little bit here, and here it's looking like you can't. But it is looking like he will be done today. Okay. And now I'm just kind of going over in the middle areas and trying to hit that again. Whew, very tedious. But for me personally, I find it very relaxing. This is my absolute favorite thing to do, is to just paint. To see something go from just, you know, a solid color to something like this is always awesome. I'm trying to get into 3D modeling so I can model and paint my own stuff. Not exclusively, but, you know, ideas I have I want to do. I know the creator of this has actually helped me, sent me in the right direction with some tutorials on how to get at least the renders looking like he does, because his renders on his Instagram are just beautiful. And you can see his, I got his, the link to his Instagram in the description of this video, so you can check it out. I'm all about promoting good artists. Okay. Man, it's looking good. Now I'm just going on the other side, the other edge. Because I got a really good hold with his tail. So I'm trying not to ruin that. All right. So it looks like this whole area is pretty much done. It's moving a lot faster than I was expecting. I honestly debated masking this off and airbrushing this, but then you run the risk of bleed over. Like if you don't have a good mask. And that's typically the hardest part about painting, is deciding which technique to use and where. I knew I could hit it with a brush with no issues, so that's why I chose this route, because I didn't want to mess up the paint. And if anybody has any questions or anything, feel free to ask. because there's not a lot I can keep talking about by painting a white brim of a shell. Okay. Okay. Looking good. So I got the edging good on that, on the inside. Now I'm just gonna get the second coat of this white on this side of the edge of the shell. Okay. Just got to get this inside. And I think we're pretty much done with this guy's shell. I'll let it dry and come back to it later to make sure that there's no other little areas, but for the most part, oh, I just got water on it, or paint. saved. Definitely got to be careful. See, I got a little tiny piece of white paint on me, and I touched the shell. It's dry now, so I'm good. Okay. Looks like we are in business. So I've got a little bit of edging. You can see it at the right angle. I got to work on my edging right here. It's a little spotty. Which isn't the end of the world. And that took care of it. Same thing there. And that is a little too much. So you can see there. And what I'll do is get rid of it. So I'll add water. And then mix it around a little bit to get the paint diluted. And then dry my brush and remove the paint. Let the brush suck up the paint. And there we go. So now I got that. All right. So I can't really tell anything else until that's fully dry. But I'll do the last spot right now, which is literally me just masking off these eyes, because that's probably going to be the next step. Is I'm going to mask off the eyes, and then after I get that, I'm going to accomplish the mouth. The mouth, I was looking at doing this dark cardinal red in the roof of his mouth, and then just this nice vintage tea rose for the tongue. Excuse me. And that's at least what I got planned for the mouth. But yeah, I'll go ahead, tape this off. And I'm literally just going to get something wide enough to tape over the entire eyes. And same thing on this side. And there we go. Okay. So I might have to lift that. Okay. So I did a bunch of masking yesterday for his stomach, but I essentially just kind of follow the contour with this big toothpick. And there we go. Okay. All right, so now I get my handy dandy X-Acto. And start cutting. Okay. Peel it up a bit. And there we go. Sorry, just couldn't see it. Now, after every single time when I've already masked, I always go back over the edges. And that's honestly just to see if the mask is good. For the most part, I'd say yes, but here. And a little bit of a too much mask right here, or not enough. So I'm going to go ahead and put it in there and patch it. And there we go. And this part isn't honestly the end of the world since it is the white part, but I'm going to just paint the entire eye and then I'll paint over the white. Or the gradient with white. There we go. One more eye. And then I'll go ahead and end this stream because I'll be going to the paint booth. There we go. Okay. And there we go. Oh, wait. Okay. All done. So I'm going to go ahead and end this stream because I'm going to airbrush his eyes. I'll finish masking this, but I've been going for over an hour and a half painting him. But this is what we've accomplished. Got the edges of his shell, all the outlines done, and got the white part of his shell done. So we literally just have his face left, and I'll probably be able to finish that today, and I would expect this week I'm going to do a full time-lapse video of everything of how I painted him. I've already released the Bulbasaur and Charmander video if you wanted to see these two guys get painted. They were a lot of fun, but like I said, this is from the artist Mar Pros 3D. His link is in the description to where you can get his models, and honestly, and you can also see his Instagram where he highlights them. But yeah, so that's pretty much it. Thanks a lot, and I hope you have a good day. Bye.